Hey, thought I'd take a break from working on our next project to give you a quick video on how to connect what we made before using MQTT to what we set up earlier, Home Assistant. So they can talk to each other and you can actually use the data from it. So it's a real quick video. It goes through the configuration files and the changes I've made. They're going to be changed as we go along rather than giving you a whole pile of stuff and then filling in the holes. As we make new devices and as we add functionality, I'll show you how to add it to Home Assistant. So hey, enjoy! What we want to do is we want to configure Home Assistant so that we can actually use it with our MQTT devices. Basically what we're going to do is Home Assistant's going to be another client to the MQTT server, just like the devices we make, and it's going to be able to listen on anything you tell it to subscribe to, and it's actually pretty smart in figuring out what it needs to do with that data. So the one part you're going to have to kind of figure out based on the install options you use, because you might have installed this on a Raspberry Pi, you might be running it on a server, you might be running it somewhere else, and there's different options for how it installs. You have to figure out where your configuration.yaml file is. So in my case, mine's in home/homeassistant.homeassistant/configuration.yaml, and that's because I'm running a Linux server, a full-blown server, not a Raspberry Pi, just because I happen to have one running already. If I didn't, Raspberry Pi would definitely be where I'd go. And this is where all your configuration is going to live. So I'm using a program called LeafPad to edit it. And as you can see, it comes up and it has a lot of configurations for different parts of Home Assistant. So some of the basic ones which I haven't really played with, the name of your system, so mine's just called Home by default. It'll say your latitude and longitude, which is basically where you live, more or less. It's not really perfect. This is the nearest big city to me. Elevation, all of this is basically to decide when the sun is up and when the sun is down and that kind of stuff. It does that automatically. Now it has a whole bunch of other little things which you can read through, and you can go on the website to decide, and maybe at later time if it's useful to us we'll look at editing it. But for now, what we want to look at is a few things I've added about halfway down the file. So in this case it's around line 66 where I added it. So the first thing you can see is MQTT:, and that's a section where you're telling it, I have an MQTT set up and I want you to log into it. So you can see this one set up as the same one that we set up earlier. This is the one I use just for these videos. So I tell it the IP address of where the server is, and that's in spite of the fact that the server happens to be on the same computer as my Home Assistant, and then I give it the username and password to log in with, and that's all you need. And from that, once you have that, then anytime that Home Assistant runs, it'll be logged into the broker and it'll be listening, well, by default to nothing, but as you can see, we're going to look at some of the things it's actually already listening to. So the next thing I added was I added a sensor. Now there's a number of different ways you can group these. For now we're just going to call them sensor 2, sensor 3. As you get more advanced, and maybe as we get more advanced together, we'll come up with a different way to group them. So for now, the first sensor I added, I told it was MQTT platform, basically because it can talk to a lot of different types of devices, and not all of them use MQTT, but the ones we use will. I gave it a name, which is the living room temperature, and then I tell it what topic to listen to. So you can remember one of the first things we made was the glowing ball. Now that's not just a trivial ball that's going to look pretty. Our eventual goal is that's going to be a way for the Home Assistant to talk to you in the most unobtrusive way possible. So as the ball changes its colors randomly or semi-randomly, that's just what it's doing when nothing's going on. But as we start adding more capability, that device will be able to change colors in ways to tell you what's going on. And if you were keen and you had to look through the code, you'd see that it already has the ability to flash red for alarms, flash green for, well, that'll be the next project. Go have a look at the code if you want to know what our next project is. And it'll actually flash blue when you get an alert on your phone. Like it won't do that yet. One of the next videos coming along in the next week or so, I'm going to show you how to set up your phone so that when you get an alert on your phone, it'll tell your MQTT system, and any devices on that network that are listening for that will actually do something to show you. And in the case of the ball, it'll flash blue. So QoS, that's something we're not really going to dive into too much right now, but that's an idea where you can have that information stay there even when the devices go away, or if a device wasn't there at the time that it was sent. So we're going to keep it at 0 for now. And then we also tell it what the unit of measurement is, and that's based on how it's going to show it to you. So it'll show the number it gets from this topic with the degrees C after it, so you know what it is. And you can see I did the same thing for all of our living room bits. And so we have temperature, humidity, whether or not there's motion, and how bright the room is. Then you'll see down in sensor 5, this is our master bedroom, and it's all the same bits, because I basically made exactly the same device again, except in the code I went in and edited what topic it talks to. And that's how you can just make more of these devices throughout your house based on where you want to be alerted to something going on. And because we're going to be alerting ourselves anyway, we might as well grab some data while we're there. And so then now I have ability to look at the temperatures around my house, see where people are moving, which is I'm going to be using later on for the system knowing whether or not I'm home. A very useful thing. And then the brightness was there anyway, because I don't know if you've noticed, but the ball actually gets darker and darker rooms so that it doesn't overpower the whole room. So it's actually quite a nice feature. And then we might as well send that to the system, because maybe we'll find a way to use it later on. Why not? It's free. So with this simple section that's been added, one for each sensor, and you can add more as you go along, what you'll end up having is now this is what my main screen looks like. You can see there's a section for the master bedroom, which I'll show you how we end up grouping them like this. And there's a section for the living room, and in fact part of the living room section is the Chromecast that's in that room. So the way we get them all to group together, you can actually see in this file it says include groups.yaml. Now you could put all the group information in, you can put really everything in one file, but by adding these things at the bottom, what it's doing is it says go to the groups.yaml file and use what's in there. And what we're going to do now is we're going to look at what is in there. So what we want to do is we want to edit the groups.yaml file, which is in the same directory as your configuration.yaml. And you'll see what I've done is I've set up a group. View is yes, which you're basically saying I want it to be visible, because you can set up groups that are invisible and you group things together, and then other groups can make the data that's in there visible, but for now it's just visible. We use a default icon, and then we basically tell it what's in that group. So here is your overall group, and we're telling it that we want to include two other little groups, which are living room and master bedroom. So then we have to define what's in living room and master bedroom, and as you can probably guess, what we've done is we said name master bedroom, master bedroom. We want view no, because what would happen is it would be viewed separately on top of everything else, because we'd have our default view which included living room and master bedroom, and then underneath that would be the master bedroom and living room. So we don't want that. We want it to appear the way we want it to appear. And then the entities in it, as you can probably guess, are going to be our 4 sensors that we get from MQTT. And then that's an exact basically copy and paste, and then you just edit the names involved for the living room as well. So this is pretty well the most basic setup that we're going to have for Home Assistant. As we go along and we build new devices, we're going to build them into the Home Assistant system and eventually have quite a powerful setup and extremely useful. So look forward to doing that together. So hopefully that video helps you out getting Home Assistant up and going. There are a lot of resources out there to get it installed to begin with, but this is definitely the best video to look at if you want to make it work with our devices that we've made. As time goes on, we'll add to it together. As we add a new device, I'll show you how to add it to Home Assistant. I'll show you some of the other options so you don't have to follow exactly my setup. And as time goes on, the system will start to make more and more sense. We're not going to add any talking toasters, but we're going to add a lot of devices and a lot of functionality that makes our lives better without getting in the way. It's not going to change your life, but it'll definitely make it cooler. So right on. So I'll see you next time with our next Home Assistant device. Yay!